On Small Cap Power, we're very excited to have Doug Casey, founder of Casey Research. And of course, he's an author, a speculator, a whole host of things. But Doug, I want to ask you why you define yourself as an anarcho-capitalist. What influences do you have?
I've been an anarchist since 1971, which is a long time, which means that I don't believe in the state as an institution. Why? Because the state is congealed power. It's not about voluntarism. It's about taxation and regulation and wars and pogroms and all kinds of horrible things. I believe in society. And most people think that anarchists are violent and run around with little black bombs with a fuse lit. This is totally incorrect. It's a peaceful, gentle, voluntary, market-based way of relating with all other people.
Now, as an investor yourself, what sorts of influences have you had on your own investments, but also just to other investors who you've come across?
I'm well known for being friendly to gold from a philosophical point of view, because all of the currencies in the world today, the Canadian dollar, the US dollar, all of them, they're all floating abstractions. They're just pieces of paper that can be printed up in unlimited amount by the central banks. And in fact, as we speak, they are, all of them, being printed up by the trillions. So this is one of many factors that's going to lead to a worldwide economic and financial catastrophe soon.
Right, and that's why you're saying to accumulate gold and silver over other investments.
Gold and silver are a base. They're very important. But there are other things that are attractive at the moment. And unfortunately, there are more things that are very, very unattractive that people are piling into.
Right. Now, I want to ask you some comments that you have about the Trump administration and what his effects are on things like bonds and real estate.
I'm proud to say I was one of the few people that accurately predicted and actually bet money on the fact that Trump was going to win the election. I don't think he's going to be a successful president, however. One of the reasons is he doesn't have any philosophical core at all. He has no beliefs, and he's personally kind of, well, not kind of, he is narcissistic and unpredictable because he doesn't have any philosophical core. The problem that Trump is facing is that we entered a gigantic financial hurricane in 2007, and we went through the leading edge of that hurricane in 8 and 9, and you might remember how horrible it was. And since then, we've been in the eye of this huge financial hurricane that all these governments around the world have created trillions and trillions of currency units to pour oil on the waters. But now, as we speak, I think we're entering the trailing edge of the hurricane, and it's going to be much worse, much longer lasting, and much different than what you saw in 2008. And Trump is going to get caught up in that, and since people hate him, and it's almost like, we're almost like at the edge of a civil war in the US. People have become so visceral about this. It's very troubling times.
Well, how are you preparing yourself?
Well, I think it's incumbent upon all of us to be diversified internationally. The financial risks in the years to come are huge, but the political risks are even bigger. Therefore, you have to be diversified politically so that all of your assets aren't under the control of one government.
So you've said in the past that Americans are corrupt by the state. What is your solution to that?
A free market. One of the nice things about Trump is at least he has a business background, and he intuitively understands that the state just throws gum in the works. Americans have been brought up to believe that the US government is a cornucopia that can magically make everything happen and provide everything, which is a very stupid idea. So he's trying to roll back taxes and regulations. I don't think he'll succeed in either endeavor, which is too bad.
And you think that if Hillary Clinton won instead, it would have been much worse?
Much worse. If Hillary was elected, we would be progressing in the direction of Zimbabwe or Venezuela much faster than we are right now.
Gotcha. Well, in your book, Speculator, which you have on your hand, there you go. What are you writing about, and does it actually translate to real life today?
Well, you can say things in fiction that perhaps you dare not say in nonfiction. These are radical books that are quite educational in these areas.
Right, and I understand that you've always come up with controversial predictions, and I'm sure that lately you have one. So can we talk about that and share why you say what you do? We're going to have a wipeout of currencies.
Oh, yes, I think that's entirely likely because all of these governments, not just the US government, but all of the governments around the world have been printing up their currency units by the trillions.
Right.
And at some point, there's going to be a panic as a result. We have not just a bubble, not just it's a hyper bubble in the bond market where interest rates have gone from 15% in the early 80s to 0% and less today. We've got a super bubble in the stock market, which is still inflating.
Yep.
We've got the same in real estate, like here in Vancouver where we are. I'd hit the bid tomorrow morning if you own a house. And you say, well, you can be in cash. But cash is a floating abstraction, can be created by the quadrillions, by governments. And you got to keep it in a bank. And all the banks are frankly bankrupt as businesses. I like owning a lot of gold and engaging in speculations to capitalize on all this paper money being created.
Now, aside from gold, what should investors be looking for safe investments?
It's still relatively early days in these cryptocurrencies.
Yeah, it's a hot topic right now.
Yeah, I think it's going to get hotter for a lot of reasons. Blockchain technology is the latest iteration of what started with the internet, and it's a very big deal. It's going to change all kinds of things. It's going to make it impossible for governments to have foreign exchange controls. It's going to put a bullet through the head of banks. Right now, the VIX, the VIX, a volatility index, is at all-time lows, which is astounding considering the state of the world.
Right.
That means you can buy puts very cheaply, and there are a lot of stocks with the stock market bubble that are overly indebted in walking, wounded, dead man walking industries that if we have a market collapse in the next 18 months, you might get 50 to 1 on your money, so I'm doing that. Usually I only like to sell options, not buy options. But right
and why
now
is that?
Because they're a wasting asset. I like to have time on my side. But occasionally when there's a bubble, you should be buying options, not selling them. And right now it should be buying puts on certain big corporations. Doing that. I like uranium a lot because it's the safest, cheapest, and cleanest, I know this is shocking for most people to hear, form of mass power generation. So there are a lot of opportunities right now, but it's increasingly impossible to invest. You have to think of speculating. Now, what is speculating? Essentially, in today's world, it's capitalizing on politically caused distortions in the market. That's very different from investing where you plant a corn seed and then you get 2 corn seeds. And it's not that world anymore.
Gotcha.
Speculating, different.
Gotcha. Now, lastly, I want to talk about what the main takeaway from this conference, the Sprott Natural Resource Symposium, is from your point of view.
The inevitable, which is that all the stupidity that governments have engaged in for many years is finally the consequences of these stupidities are becoming imminent. So we're going to go back into the trailing edge of the hurricane very soon now, and it's going to be much worse, much different, and much longer lasting than the unpleasantness of 2008 and 9.
All right. Well,
that's kind of a takeaway.
Oh, it's a little bit depressing, but I hope we can prepare ourselves.
No, listen, I always look at the bright side, and it's most of the real wealth in the world, most of it will still be here. It's just going to change ownership.
All right. Well, thank you so much for the learning curve, Doug.
Oh, my pleasure, Rachel.
To learn more from experts like Doug, make sure you sign up with us on SmallCapPower.com as a subscriber to get videos first. I'm Rachel Lee for SmallCapPower.